A very, very warm welcome to Darren Putt this afternoon, who is kicking off the second series of the My Kind of Leader podcast. So very warm welcome, Darren.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be invited.
Great. Well, I just wanted to tell the listeners and viewers a little bit about how come we've got to the point of recording at least one conversation together. And that's because we met through a mutual colleague. And we've had several conversations now, haven't we? And they always end up going from a 15-minute chat to a good 45 minutes, if not an hour, and of gas bagging. And it occurred to me the time before last that actually it would be fabulous just to talk to you about your work, your business, and your vision, because I find it very fascinating, and I know the listeners will as well. So thanks for your time. And yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, Motus Training, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction. So yeah, I run Motus. So we are a health, fitness, lifestyle and performance consultancy business. So we work with both individuals and organizations as well, some businesses and some schools as well, latterly. And we get involved in anything to do with how to improve performance using health as the mechanism to do that. So a lot of our work at the moment is around helping people manage stress better.
Right.
And of course, how that then affects behaviours into the more, I guess, mainstream areas of health. So how that affects our behaviours when it comes to our nutrition, and when it comes to exercise and sleep.
So are those three things what you would call mainstream? They're more common knowledge, even if we don't do the right things by them, that they would be mainstream. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, my background, to share a little bit of that, if that's helpful as well.
Yeah.
I did sports science at university, and then went out to work in the health and fitness industry as it was. So I started working in a gym. And then I started working one-to-one with people, kind of personal training, as what most people would call it. Mm-hmm. And to begin with, that was all about exercise.
Right.
So quite soon I realized that exercise alone didn't necessarily get people the results they wanted when it comes to their health. Okay. So I need to find out a bit more about nutrition. So I did some further qualifications with nutrition. So that added nutrition to the mix. And then we kind of found, well, if we've got exercise and we've got nutrition, but people still don't necessarily execute on those behaviors. So it's almost like they might know everything about, they might be able to write the finest exercise program in the world, the greatest nutrition program in the world, but if we can't do it for whatever reason, then it all becomes pretty useless.
Right.
And so I started getting interested in health psychology, I guess you'd call it, and behavioural change. Right. I'd done some of that at university, and I was like, oh, hang on, maybe there was a reason why I studied that and why I was so interested. And maybe, in fact, that was also a very good reason why, by and large, the health and fitness industry was, and probably still is, failing quite badly.
Right. Which way do you think it's failing? Is it that people have the knowledge but they can't follow it through or stick with it, stay with it? Is that the problem? Because in terms of the industry, in terms of its being able to sell product after service after program, I guess we'd say that's phenomenally successful. Are you saying it as a way that's successful for a person or an organization? That's
success, by my definition, being that people achieve and maintain the results that they want, i.e. improving their health to a certain level.
Right.
And I think the sad thing is that so much, as you allude to already, actually, so much of the health and fitness industry is actually founded on failure and people failing repeatedly.
Right.
Which is really sad.
So you and Motus, are you are you looking at that gap? Are you looking at the bit that maybe you would consider missing, or something that you offer augments the other things that gives it a chance to be more successful? Is that what makes it a bit different?
I think that's one of the things. Yeah, I mean, I set out really not knowing where it was going to take us and what was going to happen.
That's honest.
Other than what I saw was kind of disappointing and not working. An example, the classic gym environment. For a lot of people, a gym environment is actually very intimidating.
Yeah.
And actually, gyms themselves, if all of their members turned up and exercised regularly, they'd have a real problem. Not just with car parking, but they just wouldn't have the capacity to deal with it. So that assumption that people aren't going to exercise regularly is built into their business model, and that just really
I get that now. So I'm doing them a favor by not going to the gym.
Oh, they love it
because I've created space for them.
Yeah, the best thing is if you sign up and pay your membership fee and don't go. That's the ideal, and that really charged. So the first aim, I guess, of Motus, of the business, was let's create a win-win situation here, whereby we win from a business perspective if people keep coming, remain clients, so they pay us, we generate revenue, but they will only do that if they're happy with the service and get the type of results that they want and that they need.
Yeah, and I suppose effectively as well, you're kind of trying to the core principle is almost put yourself out of business eventually, that people take it on board enough that they go off. But obviously that's incredibly difficult. We know that the psychology around it is that we perhaps need reminding, or we need some guidance to stay on what's good for us, because it's very easy for us to not stick to a diet, to not stick to the nutritional eating, to not stick to the exercise. So for you to be phenomenally successful, you'd be putting yourself out of business consistently almost. But at the same time, it's really honoring that fact that we are human, and some consistent guidance is really important. And that makes it a bit different. So it's not a revolving door of a gym membership that keeps sputtering out kind of thing, but you're alongside somebody, or alongside an organization, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's a really interesting conundrum that I think about a lot, is that should another measure of our success be that people can sustain their health and well-being by themselves? And that works sometimes, but for a lot of people, and I'd include myself in that as well, I need some support on an ongoing basis, and not just with my health, with all sorts of things.
Right.
Now, I draw the parallel with in any area of life. If you want to improve and you want to be really good and you want to remain really good, most people work with a coach.
Yeah.
Some sort. Think of the elite tennis players. Say they know all the shots. They know all the time. They know it all.
They know it, yeah.
They know it, but they still work with a coach. They still have that objectivity. They still have that accountability, and they still have that support, so that they can continue to improve. And with health is not something that's ever done either.
Yeah, that's annoying, isn't it?
I know. Right, 6 months. This is it.
I've done health now. Yeah, it'll be great. I've done health for 6 months.
Yeah,
but I really like that that metaphor of that, that consistent guide, the consistent coach, because just because you know it doesn't mean to say you can't know it better. Like an athlete, a sports person wouldn't say, well, I know absolutely everything, because actually the best athletes don't believe that they are, even if they are the world's best. They always think that there's some room for improvement. So I really like that's your kind of attitude to what you offer. I didn't want to lose the fact. Oh, sorry, did you have something else? Sorry, go ahead.
The whole concept of health as well. We talk about a wider concept of health, in that health really is so much more than just how fast you can run, or how high you can jump, or what your dress size is, or how good you look naked. There's all sorts there's all sorts of facets to health.
Yeah.
That's the one that brought us to working with businesses as well, is that there's a clear link with performance.
Yeah.
But I think the exciting thing about it, and one of the things that I love about working with our clients over long periods of time, years quite often, is that it's a moving target. And what the definition of health is to somebody in different ages is going to vary. It's going to vary based upon what's going on in their life at that very moment. It varies massively whether people have got children or haven't got children, what type of work they do, where they do their work, what their personal goals and ambitions are, and that changes all the time. So therefore, how you manage it and work towards it needs to change in conjunction.
So it sounds like you're saying, like, helping people build a relationship with health, so that health isn't a thing that gets done. You're consistently evolving a relationship with it, in a sense. It really interestingly, obviously we all know this, it's been an incredibly challenging couple of years, different challenges for different people. And you mentioned about how you help people manage stress. And I guess that we've had stress in a way that we've never had it before. So we know the stress differently now. We're 2 years in. What have you noticed over the last couple of years that you think is really pertinent now to the health industry, or to you personally and as a business owner?
Yeah, I think we've had this background level of, don't use the word, endemic stress, like never before that I can remember in my lifetime. And sadly, I think we're only just beginning to see the sheer scale of the impact of that now. And I think we're going to see the impact for years and years and years. And people living in this constant state of fear on some level, or uncertainty.
Yeah.
And what I liken it to is that, let's say we've all got a given capacity to deal with stuff that goes on. And it's like, if that capacity is constantly being used up by, whatever, 30, 40, 50% by just that situation, about which we have very little, if any, control, that puts us at risk, because there are all sorts of other things, of course, happen in the meantime. There are all sorts of other implications for that. So I think it's been the biggest challenge to health that I've ever seen. And I'm actually kind of quite fearful for people to see what's going to happen over the next couple of years.
Yeah, as we watch it unfold, because it's like the impact is often delayed. Yeah.
Well, we know so many conditions are related to chronic stress. Yeah. Whether that's cancer, whether that's heart disease, other metabolic diseases, whether that's almost degenerative diseases, inflammatory conditions, all sorts of things are exacerbated massively by stress and chronic stress. So that's a big worry. And the other things that I've noticed is that there are some people who used the pandemic and lockdowns as a springboard to really focus on their health. And you see the amazing stories. Some people, I've ran 17 marathons in the last 2 years, and I've lost 6 stone, and now I exercise with Joe Wicks at midday every day. But most people, that is not the reality. Right. Most people have let their exercise slip. Most people have reached for comfort food. And again, I'm not criticizing this at all. We've all not a judgment. It's just a statement of fact. What you're seeing. Yeah. What we're seeing, people have been drinking more. There's some data that says people have slept more if they're not been commuting or whatever. But from what I see, people have slept badly. So there's all these things kind of like a melting pot coming together.
Yeah.
It's going to cause big problems, unfortunately.
This is the name of this podcast is the My Kind of Leader. It's got that double meaning. So it's like, hey, that's the kind of leader I'm interested in. And also it's about that incorporating kindness. And it comes to mind because, like you were saying, we don't need to judge it. We're all less than perfect because there is no such thing as perfection. How do you lead yourself and your company with that kind of attitude of kindliness, if you like, in this health industry, which is rife with actually shaming people or pointing the finger at somebody's weaknesses? How do you kind of embrace it, if at all? I'm sure you do, because that's why you're here.
It's a great question, and being very truthful, I didn't know whether I was embracing it or how I was embracing it for many years. I've kind of, if you can't see where we are here, we're in the middle of nowhere, basically on the edge of Stratford-upon-Avon. I don't have a lot of dealings with the mainstream health and fitness. I don't get involved in a lot of the social media stuff because of those reasons that you said. There's so much shame and guilt, and that is another reason why the health and fitness industry is failing. It makes it very, very difficult for people to get out of that cycle. I guess one way is we kind of isolate ourselves from that. And try and stay focused on taking a different approach. And I've always, and this is something I try and impart on my team, is respecting people's individuality. It's about perspective, I think, is that you can objectively look at a situation and you can look at things that are going on and take one person and it has no impact. It doesn't ruffle any feathers at all. Same situation, the next person, and it just turns their world upside down. It throws the routines out the window, and that's it's kind of fascinating on one level, but it requires, I guess, a great deal of empathy, which is something I'm learning and trying to practice every day. It's not something that perhaps came naturally many years ago. But I guess in parallel to it all, I'm kind of on my own journey with that as well.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing this for probably 15 years plus. I've developed, I believe, a good deal of empathy for clients, for other people, and have been able to guide lots of people through difficult times and get some fantastic results with their health, and in groups and businesses as well. But I haven't always been that person to myself.
Right. And it's interesting, that parallel, isn't it? The more that you are empathic to self, the more easily that comes for having empathy with others. It becomes almost not automated in the sense that it doesn't matter. It's just that it doesn't take energy. You can't get compassion fatigue if you've got compassion and empathy for yourself. It just doesn't exist. You might have boundaries, but you won't get used up by it. So that's really interesting. So this is why I like it, talking about living and leading. So you're living it and you're leading your company as well in a way that's got the compassion and the empathy for you and therefore others.
Yeah, and I think, again, I sound like I'm criticising the health and fitness industry constantly, but there's an awful lot of, and I'm sure it's the same in other industries as well, there's an awful lot of saying one thing and then behind closed doors doing another.
Interesting.
And I that lack of integrity with yourself, I think that bothers me. So yeah, I try and kind of lead by example, But while still acknowledging that everybody's different, I don't expect everybody to do the same thing as me, because their objectives and their circumstances are different to me. But by treating ourselves and our bodies and our all-round health with respect, and making it a true priority, it's my belief that makes every other area of our life better.
Yeah. But like you say, you're not, on the other hand, judging if people are struggling with that, because it's a struggle sometimes too. And when you're trying to find a middle ground, we're also either side of a spectrum at times, aren't we?
Yeah. It's easy to be that. And again, there's often assumptions that it's easy for you because of X, Y, Z.
Right.
I'm quite open that I've had some significant struggles with my health. I've been very overweight. I've had a couple of episodes of, I guess you call it, burnout. I know is one of your specialist topics. So I've been there and experienced a lot of those things myself firsthand, that I'm working through with clients and with organizations.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like you say, about that sometimes it can feel sometimes insincere, and it's not like you have to go through everything that your clients have gone through or going through, but actually we do need to be prepared to look at perhaps the bits of ourselves or our experiences that we're not keen to look at, but we've got to be prepared to walk that sometimes, or even dive right into it if we want to be alongside other people. I really like what you said about that, it's for it to be real and for it to be genuine. People know anyway, don't they? They know whether you've been there. They know whether you're prepared to go where you're saying, even if you don't have to be on the exact same path, you're not asking them to do something that you wouldn't do. I think that comes across. I just want to acknowledge that, and also to tell the viewers and listeners that chances are we're going to be talking again. So this won't be the end of our conversation, because we can talk for England. We're good at it. But I'm the reason I'm saying that is I'm kind of giving a precursor to this question, which might be quite big. And that is, over the years, and in the way that you look at the holistic health and the way that you view the industry, what's the question that you think is really not just important but incredibly valuable for the human being? Like, what is the question that we ought to be asking ourselves? And you get to choose it, right? You don't have to caveat it. What's the question that we should be asking ourselves right now in terms of health?
Now that's a challenging one.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to work out whether I can make this into a question.
Maybe there's not one, but
yeah, I think the essence of our philosophy is about, I've already said this, it's making health a priority. So I do believe by prioritizing our health, improving our health, we will automatically improve everything else within our life. And it's a huge cliche to say, if you don't have your health, then you have nothing. But like many cliches, there's truth in it.
Right.
So maybe the question around that is how can I better prioritize my health, or how can I?
Okay, what about flipping it the other way then? So if health's the priority, and we agree that's a given in a sense, because I've had hundreds of people say to me, look, if my health has gone, whether it's through a burnout or whatever, then nothing else means anything to me. So let's say that the health is, we know that's what's that question? What around health? Is it how we approach work? Is it how we approach relationships? Is it how we approach family? and I'm not saying it has to be the only question, but what is there anything that comes to mind for you over that, especially over the last couple of years? That's,
I guess maybe it's then, how do I integrate health within those other areas?
right.
I guess another way of thinking about it is, it's very easy to divide our life into these separate categories, to say, right, this bit's health, this bit's my work, my business, my career, this bit's my relationship, my family, this bit's, I don't know, education or learning or something like that, and see them as very, very separate.
Yeah.
And the problem, or a big problem I see then, is that you almost put them in competition with each other. Whether that's competition for time, or competition for focus, or competition for energy. And very soon, one of them is going to get neglected in some way, or we're going to get like guilt, shame. Oh, I'm spending too much time in this area, I'm neglecting this one. I'm not doing enough here.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because that whole work-life balance nonsense, that's two compartments. You know, we live wherever we are. So I like that. So, but this is multiple compartments now.
It could be, yeah. I mean, the work-life balance phrase bothers me.
We've had this conversation, haven't we? Yeah.
A lot. So again, it pits those things against each other. It puts them in conflict.
Yeah.
And anytime we're in conflict, that's going to cause us a problem at some point. How can work and life be separate? You're also saying on some level that work is bad and life is good.
Right. Exactly.
And that is not setting us up. It's not setting us up to perform, but very more importantly, it's not setting us up to be happy. It's setting ourselves up for conflict. So I think that's perhaps a fundamental principle again, is, life is the kind of the big picture, the big game, and work is a really important aspect of that. I guess, which leads us nicely into, again, something we've spoken about before, which is, I think there does need to be a conversation or a consideration around the definition of work.
Yeah.
What is work? What does it mean for us?
Oh, okay. That sounds like a big fat juicy question.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
What is it to you? It might be hard, and by all means, I'd love you to come back and actually, even if we just do a pod on that question, but just so that we finish this off beautifully, if we can, what occurs to you about that definition of work? What's the struggle that needs for us to have a conversation about?
I think the struggle that warrants a conversation and some serious thought is kind of related to that work-life balance thing, is that I think often we're so conditioned to not like work, or to see it as something that has to be endured, rather than, I say, such a fundamental part of our life that, again, enhances every other area of life, which brings on to work and purpose. Right. I think a common factor is, if you find people where those things are aligned, they tend to be much happier. Okay.
So really, that a conversation to kind of revel in is, what is it to us? How does purpose make a difference? Maybe the part of that conversation is when somebody's got a job that they're really not in love with, and it doesn't fill them with love and drive and interest, but it does serve them in terms of it gives them cash. So there's another conversation. Some people won't love what they do.
Yeah, and that's that's okay. I'm sure, if as long as it's a conscious decision. Is it a recipe for ultimate happiness? Probably not. But if you can reach a certain level of happiness that way, then that's absolutely fine, as long as it's a conscious thing. I think that sometimes I see lots of people, probably around about my age, to be honest. I started having these conversations, I'd say a few years older than me, but now it's me now. Who are then thinking, "Oh, hang on, isn't there a bit more to it than this?" Work is having all these negative impacts upon my life, upon my health, upon my relationships. How could I view it differently?
Okay.
And I think
that's a
different view or a different perspective of it.
I feel like that's a really lovely, kind of semi-ending to this bit of the podcast, actually. And I would love you to come back, and because what struck me is you talking about it's very different if we're conscious of it, because then we can't think anything about what we're not conscious of, right? We can't make something different. And I'm not saying better or necessarily, but if we're conscious of the choice, even if for instance we're not in love with the job we do, you're saying if we're conscious of it, then we can perhaps change our thinking around it, and then it might not lead us to happiness, but it might lead us to being content for the time being, or it gives us what we want and need for that time being. So we don't always have to have this wonderful purpose-driven career kind of thing. So if I would love you to come back,
that'd be great. Love to.
And talk about that. I think it's not that you've not said other fantastic things today, but it feels like that's kind of like semicolon that we're going to go on and say some more about it. If you'd like to come back, that'd be great.
Love to. Actually, in businesses in particular, a lot of the work that we're doing, a lot of the conversations we're having with teams is about this concept of work or work-life balance, because ultimately businesses want happy, healthy people.
Yeah,
they're going to perform at their best. So it's win-win-win.
Yeah, so you help raise the consciousness, and then they get a choice. They get to choose what they do with it.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you ever so much for your time today, Darren. People that want to find you and your company, where's the best place for them? Where do you hang out? What kind of, you're not massively into social media, but is LinkedIn a good place? Email maybe?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, either my own name, Darren Putt, or Motus Training. But there's our website as well, which is www.motustraining, that's MOTUS training.co.uk.
Okay, great. And those will be in the show notes anyway, but thank you very much for sharing them. Thanks for your time. Have a great rest of your afternoon and a good evening.
And you. Thanks, Anna.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.